In the 4th year of my contract with Julian Harper, his attitude toward me had finally begun to soften. Overjoyed, I went to the jewelry shop to pick up the engagement ring. But on my way back, I was unlucky enough to get hit by a car and ended up in the hospital. The moment I opened my eyes, Julian's anxious face came into view. Something in my mind suddenly twitched, and I blurted out, "Who are you?" I think I lost my memory. I had only meant to tease him, but I never expected Julian to stare at me so seriously, his expression gradually turning cold. "I'm just your college classmate." The words hit me like a bucket of cold water, instantly choking back the half-spoken, "I was just teasing you." The joy I'd felt when I first saw him shattered into pieces. I stammered, staring at the cool, distant expression on Julian Harper's face, wishing, pathetically, that someone could save me from this moment. After all, just this morning, he'd wrapped me in the blanket and bitten at my Adam's apple, touching me with the intimacy of an ordinary lover. I thought he had finally accepted my feelings. My voice was dry as I asked, "Just college classmates?" Julian gave a short, eyes lowered to his phone. "I heard you were hit by a car, so I came to check on you." "Oh, well, that's very nice of you." My fingers curled uncontrollably beneath the blanket. The ring box hidden in my palm dug painfully into my skin, into my heart. Julian glanced at me a few times, his gaze seeming reluctant to linger on me at all, but the tension in his shoulders gradually loosened. He sat a little straighter, checked his phone again, and stood. "Get some rest. I'm heading out." I wanted to ask him to stay, but when I saw the relieved expression on his face, the hand I'd lifted slowly fell back down. As he left, I caught a glimpse through the crack of the door. Another young man standing on tiptoe, arms around Julian's neck. A soft voice drifted through the opening. "Julian, isn't it Lynn Hayes' own fault he lost his memory? If he hadn't thrown money at you all those years, you wouldn't have suffered so much." I froze. I knew that voice, Miles Jang, Julian's childhood friend. The lover he wanted to chase across the world right before graduating from university. The person whose name he drunkenly called the entire night after I proposed our support arrangement. For 4 years, he never mentioned him again. I'd thought Julian had long stopped loving him. Even when I brought Miles up openly a month ago after the guy returned from overseas, Julian had acted completely indifferent. Now that I think about it, he was acting for my sake. Pretending he didn't remember. Pretending he loved me. Then the moment he learned I'd lost my memory and forgotten our agreement, he tossed me out like trash. Damn it. Does he think he can just throw me away? My nose stung and my eyes blurred as tears gathered. I grabbed my pillow, ready to fling it onto the bed in frustration, but the door suddenly opened. The tears that were about to fall were forced right back in. Jason Carter stepped in, his tall figure blocking the entire doorway. "Lynn Hayes! I just saw that little lover of yours outside, making out with someone else." "What the? Lynn, why are you crying?" Jason Carter had always been my mortal enemy in the business world. Every time he saw me, he wore the same expression as if he'd just smelled something dead. But today, the moment he looked at me, his eyes were clearly filled with panic. Another twitch hit my brain and I murmured, I don't know you. I lost my memory." Jason frowned and gave me a long once-over before slapping my shoulder so hard I nearly coughed up my stomach. "Who do you think you're fooling?" Pain shot up my spine, but the hurt in my chest was even worse. Damn it. Even my enemy could tell I was pretending. But the man who had shared my bed for 4 years, he believed the lie instantly. Did he truly believe it, or had he already been waiting for an excuse to leave me? I sat on the hospital bed in a daze. Jason studied my pale face, then stepped closer. "Lynn Hayes, you didn't actually get hit stupid, did you?" I slapped his hand away before it touched my head. "Get lost! Who are you calling stupid? You don't understand anything." I wasn't stupid. I was just mourning the death of my love. My injuries weren't serious, just a mild concussion. After 2 days, I was cleared for discharge. When it was time to leave, I forced Jason to handle all the procedures, then climbed into the passenger seat of his car. The moment he saw me sitting there, his expression turned sour. "Lynn, if you're planning to go back to that apartment, I'm not driving you." He meant the apartment I gave to Julian Harper. For the past few years, that was where I lived with him. Jason had always been like this. Once, after a banquet, I'd gotten drunk and asked him to drive me home. He agreed, until he heard I was going back to Julian. Then he threw me out halfway. I sniffled. "Julian and I are done. I'm just going back to pack my things and move to my villa. Is that okay with you?" Only then did Jason reluctantly accept his fate as my chauffeur. I originally thought Julian had been eager to distance himself from me. He surely would have moved out already. But when I opened the apartment door, everything was still there. Nothing was missing. Not a single item. There were even signs of cooking from yesterday. So much for pretending he didn't care. I quickly stuffed all my belongings into a suitcase and dragged it outside. Jason had been leaning against the doorframe, watching without lifting a finger. Only when I tugged the suitcase to the doorway did he finally reach out, lifting the entire thing with one hand and carrying it over the threshold. I couldn't resist mocking him. "Oh, so your hands do work? They only grow when I walk toward the door?" Jason snorted. "I'm not stepping into that place. It's filthy." For the 10,000th time, I swallowed the urge to curse him out. I was about to walk with him to the elevator when the doors slid open, and standing inside was Julian Harper, with Miles Jiang. Their hands were intertwined. Julian Harper froze for a moment, instinctively letting go of the hand he was holding. But the moment his gaze shifted to Jason Carter, his expression became impossible to describe. "What's the meaning of this?" His tone sounded exactly like a husband catching someone cheating. I glanced at Julian and Miles Jiang, emptied myself of every emotion I could, and forced my face into the perfect dumb act. "College classmates, right? I just heard some of my things were still here. I came with my friend to pick them up and leave." I kept my head down, refusing to look at him, and moved to slip past the two of them. But suddenly, Julian's hand clamped around my arm. A vein bulged at his temple. "Lynn Hayes, where do you think you're going?" His gaze slid to Jason, darkening even more. "You're going with him?" I froze, and then by some devilish impulse, my brain twitched again. I reached out and casually hooked my arm around Jason Carter's neck. "Yeah, he's my boyfriend. If I don't live with him, am I supposed to live with you?" The entire hallway fell silent. All three faces turned stiff. Miles tugged gently at Julian's sleeve. Julian, don't." But seeing Julian's cold, iron-hard expression, he quickly looked down and kept quiet. I stared at Julian's torn expression, and for one final moment, gave him a chance. All he had to do was walk toward me, pull my hand back, and tell me I belonged with him. If he said that, I would forget the contract. I would handle Miles. I would forgive everything. He only needed to take one step. But Julian didn't move. He hesitated, long enough for the hesitation to become a rejection. His gaze drifted to the side, and in the end he simply loosened his grip on my arm. "Lynn, you lost your memory. Don't believe everything people say. You'll get tricked until nothing's left of you." The heat in my chest instantly froze into ice. I couldn't speak. Even my breathing sounded loud, shaky, pathetic. At that moment, Jason pulled my arm off his neck, only to grip my hand tightly in his own. "And who exactly are you saying is tricking him?" He didn't wait for a response. He dragged me away without looking back. We rode in silence. Before I knew it, we'd arrived at Jason's house. I blinked, finally snapping out of my daze. I forced a weak smile. "Are you kidnapping me while I'm amnesiac?" Jason opened the door, his expression unreadable. "You said I'm your boyfriend. If you're staying at your boyfriend's place, what's the problem?" "What the? That was just a momentary panic talking." I scratched my cheek, feeling the embarrassment catch up to me. "Jason, you're not seriously that petty, right? It was just a little fake claim, and you're taking revenge this fast?" Jason muttered something under his breath, then looked up at me. "You're staying with me for the next few days." "Why should I?" He'd seen me at my most pathetic breakup moment. He was my business rival. Why the hell would I live with him? Jason leaned in dangerously close, speaking right near my face. "Because I don't feel like waiting until you kill yourself and leave the Hayes Corporation's mess for me to clean up." Or, "Are you waiting for Julian to come crawling back for a reunion?" That crossed the line. Suicide? Reunion? Does he think I have no dignity? Sure, I'd chased Julian stubbornly before, but I wasn't pathetic enough to cling to that crooked tree now. I straightened my neck and snapped. "Bullshit. If it's bullshit, then why are you scared to stay here?" "You know what? Fine, I'll stay. Jason Carter, don't you dare regret it." Thanks to Jason Carter's provocation, I ended up actually moving into his home. Jason's place was surprisingly close to my own preferred aesthetic. Not the cold black-white gray of Julian's apartment, but a clean, modern style accented with soft, warm colors. Even the fresh flowers were replaced regularly, giving the place a comforting, lived-in feel. Honestly, it was more comfortable than living at Julian's ever was. But of course, I would never tell Jason that. And since I still wanted revenge for all the things he'd said earlier, I dedicated myself, starting from the very first night, to making his life difficult. For example, running into his ensuite bathroom at midnight to shower, singing at the top of my lungs while the water ran, spending 2 hours cooking terrible food, shaping it into heart designs, and forcing him to eat it. Or barging into his study during his international meetings and leaning into his headset mic on purpose. If I, Lynn Hayes, decide someone's going to suffer, there's no escaping it. At first, Jason treated me like air. After enduring it several times, he finally snapped. He muted his microphone abruptly, turned his head, and found me pressing my mouth far too close to his ear, panting dramatically. His handsome face suddenly appeared right in front of mine, way too close. I instinctively leaned back, but he grabbed me in one smooth motion and hauled me into his lap. Lynn Hayes, enough. With breathy noises like that, aren't you afraid I'll actually do something to you? I grinned, ready to say he wouldn't dare. Everyone knew Jason Carter was practically married to his job, work sexual to the core. The man had never shown interest in anyone. But before I could open my mouth, a large hand slid under my loungewear and touched my waist. A sharp gasp escaped before I could stop it. My face flamed, and I grabbed his wrist, yanking his hand back out with gritted teeth. Jason raised an eyebrow at me, amusement unmistakable in his eyes. I was planning to storm off, but seeing that expression made something snap inside me. Fine. If he wanted to play, I'd play. I shoved my own hand under his shirt in retaliation. No way I'd let myself lose to Jason Carter of all people. And anyway, I wasn't the one in the middle of a serious business meeting. Who would win or lose was obvious. That day I had no idea how long Jason's video conference dragged on. All I knew was that my waist and chest were rubbed red and my legs turned to noodles. In the end, Jason had to carry me back to my room. I glared up at him, panting. You just wait. It would have sounded intimidating if I wasn't lying flat and limp like a defeated cat. Jason started to leave, but paused when he heard me. To my shock, he actually laughed. If you pull something like that again, I'll keep the camera and microphone on. Let the entire business world see exactly how their beloved CEO Lynn Hayes likes to flirt. Jason Carter was ruthless. Just because of that one threat he made, I actually behaved myself for a while. After all, I knew he was the type to actually pull something like that off. Back in high school, I had tattled on him to our homeroom teacher for dating early. The very next day, he walked into the office with the prank love letter I had stuffed into his locker and claimed I was the person he'd been dating. And so that Monday, during the flag-raising ceremony, the two of us stood under the national flag. I read the love letter, and he read a disciplinary self-reflection. That photo is still pinned on the alumni message wall. Too humiliating. If he ever did something like that again, how could I still show my face in the business world? Might as well jump off the Hayes Tower and call it a day. So I decided to stop messing with him. Like a real man, I would defeat him fairly, in the business arena. I'd acquire Carter Corp one day and make Jason work for me for the rest of his life. Conveniently, the government auction I'd been preparing for had arrived. I dressed up properly and went to attend. They were auctioning a large plot of land. If I won it and developed it well, it would definitely put me ahead of Carter Corp. But the moment I arrived at the entrance, I was stunned. Julian Harper was there, standing next to Miles Jiang, one in a black suit, one in white, a matching black and white pair. Just not a very lucky combination. I'll admit, the past month of fighting with Jason had kept my mind busy. I hadn't been thinking about Julian as much. But seeing him again still made something in my chest tighten. It wasn't strange for Julian to be here. I helped him build his company in the first place. I had even mentioned before that once I won this land, we would develop it together. I just hadn't expected, after everything between us shattered, that he would dare bring it up again. President Hayes. Julian hesitated when he saw me stop, but still walked over. President Hayes, I'm not sure if you remember, but you previously expressed interest in co-developing the West District land with my company. Not sure if I remember. We already broke up, and he still wants to develop land with me? Do I look like a walking free advantage sign? I raised an eyebrow, preparing to speak, but a heavy hand landed on my shoulder. Just a regular college classmate of President Hayes's, and you still want a slice of the pie? Jason Carter's mocking tone was unmistakable. Julian visibly faltered, but still tried to persist. President Hayes, you promised me before. He's not considering it. Jason didn't even wait for me to respond. He wrapped an arm around me and dragged me toward the rest lounge. Lynn Hayes, if you want Hayes Corp to go bankrupt tomorrow, go ahead and agree to him. The urgency in his voice made me pause. I wasn't going to agree, I said honestly. But that plot is too big. I can't handle it alone. I'll need another partner. You can partner with me. Jason said it suddenly. His eyes were pitch black, unusually intense, like they pulled you in, even though you couldn't read what was inside. I looked away, uncomfortable. Jason Carter, don't forget. You're my mortal enemy. Jason suddenly snapped. That's because you can't tell people apart. Lynn Hayes, before you got involved with Julian Harper, were we really that hostile? He finished, yanked the door open, and stormed out. The government auction officially began. I successfully secured the land in the West District. Just as I was looking for Jason Carter, I realized he wasn't at the post-auction reception at all. Instead, Julian Harper appeared, blocking my path with a glass of champagne in hand. President Hayes, have you reconsidered the West District Development Project? I felt a sudden wave of irritation. I knew Julian wanted something from me, but what right did he have? 4 years of our agreement, and I don't owe him a damn thing. So why does he get to slip away under the excuse of my amnesia, then come crawling back to bite off a piece of me again? Do I look that easy to exploit? I deliberately looked him up and down. President Harper, if I'm not mistaken, your company isn't particularly large. Julian visibly stiffened. I lifted my hand, letting my fingertip drag slowly across the fabric of his shirt. To collaborate with Hayes Corp on a land development project, being just a college classmate isn't enough, is it? What exactly can you offer? Julian's expression darkened instantly. A laugh slipped out of me, sharp and humorless. I had always thought Julian wasn't someone who chased money or status. All those years I pursued him, he never once cared about my wealth. Only after trouble hit his family did I finally get my chance with him. So that's what it really was, huh? He just wanted the benefits without the effort. I turned to leave, but the next moment, a cold cascade poured from the top of my head all the way down to my shoes. Miles Jong stood there gripping a glass of red wine, his wide, bunny-like eyes furious. Lynn Hayes, you're just someone with a bit of money. What gives you the right to insult Julian? Security quickly stepped in and escorted both Julian and Miles out. My white shirt was stained red, my perfectly styled hair dripping and ruined. The embarrassing scene felt exactly like the one back in high school. Except this time, Jason Carter wasn't here to make a fool of himself with me, which somehow made it feel even worse. I refused the set of clothes my assistant rushed out to buy and drove straight home. When I arrived, Jason Carter wasn't there. I wasn't sure whether to feel relieved or oddly disappointed. I headed into the bathroom and took a shower. But when I walked back out, I noticed something off. The living room lights were off, yet a silhouette sat on the sofa, still, unmoving. And the room carried a thick, unmistakable scent of alcohol. Not mine, his. Jason Carter had been drinking? That alone was strange enough that I walked over and patted his cheek lightly. What are you? Before I even finished, a strong pull yanked my arm and I fell straight onto the sofa. Jason leaned over me, his figure casting a shadow in the dark. His gaze, usually sharp enough, looked even more dangerous, like something was clawing its way to the surface. You're drunk, I murmured, suddenly sensing that this was not a safe moment to joke around. But Jason lowered his head even further, his breath warm against my cheek as he whispered, Lynn Hayes, I knew you long before he did. So why is it that the moment he appears, you only see him? His voice cracked slightly. And why is it that when I want to help you, you keep pushing me away? I had no idea what he was talking about. He was drunk. A drunk man's words shouldn't be taken seriously. He'd forget everything the next morning anyway. Fine, I'll let you help, okay? I shoved at him weakly. Jason, get off me. You're heavy. But Jason didn't budge. Instead, he tightened his grip around my wrists, pinning them above my head with surprising steadiness. Lynn, I want you to be mine. That line was too much. I had no idea how to respond. Before I could even try, he leaned down and pressed clumsy, scattered kisses across my face, trailing to my neck and finally brushing against my lips again and again like someone seeking warmth in the dark. Jason, are you insane? It had been a long time since anything like this had happened. And Jason like this, it was absolutely taking advantage of a weakened man. My self-control was hanging on by a thread. Heat spread quickly, starting where his fingers touched my waistline, then upward, downward, outward, until every part of me felt unbearably warm. My resistance softened, turning into something embarrassingly close to responding. I stopped pushing him away, letting him move my arms, letting him lean closer, closer still. But just when I thought Jason Carter was going to fully commit to whatever he'd started, the idiot suddenly froze. He braced himself above me, breathing hard, cold sweat dripping onto my skin. "Is this okay?" he asked, voice low but trembling. I almost rolled my eyes into next week. "No, it's not." Jason went silent. The next moment he wordlessly pulled off his own tie and wrapped it around my mouth to muffle whatever I might say next. Then he moved with the kind of reckless determination that made my entire spine arch. "Damn you, Jason Carter. You absolute bastard. I knew you had no good intentions. Just you wait. Once I recover, I swear I'll make you beg for mercy." It turns out familiarity makes certain situations 10 times more awkward. When I woke up the next morning, I didn't dare touch Jason Carter, not even a fingertip. All I felt was the crippling embarrassment of having accidentally bent my longtime rival. I didn't even have the courage to look him in the eye. Feeling around blindly, I finally found a shirt, though it was torn into several ragged pieces, and put it on without caring how ridiculous I looked. My gaze darted around like a guilty thief. We were both drunk last night, right? Drunk, so let's just forget it happened." I stood up, only for my knees to give out the moment I took a step. I nearly collapsed onto the floor. As I hobbled out on wobbly little steps, I heard Jason behind me. "It's not forgotten." "What?" I said, "It's not forgotten." "Lynn Hayes, I wasn't drunk yesterday. I need you to seriously consider what I said." That day was the first time I had ever fled from him in such a miserable state. After all, I prided myself on being tough, bleed, sweat, never cry. Jason might advance 1 step, but I always lipped 10. But now, I honestly didn't know how to face him, so I escaped back to my company. With a cushion under my chair, I sat upright like a model CEO and behaved myself for 2 whole days. On the 3rd day, Jason marched straight into my office. "Lynn, look at this." "What is it?" "A scandal photo." I blurted the first thing that came to mind, watching the way his eyebrow twitched. "It's not. It's a collaboration proposal." "Oh, thank God. Not a compromising photo." I opened the proposal, intending to skim through it, but the further I read, the more focused I became. Jason's plan was actually solid, mutually beneficial, with a sizable advantage offered to Hayes Corp. Give me 10 more proposals like this, and I really could buy out Carter Corp one day. We need to review this further since... I tried to maintain a professional air, but Jason's next words destroyed that composure instantly. "Does your, backside still hurt?" His dark eyes bored into mine, then flicked meaningfully toward the cushion under me. I wanted to shove the cushion directly into his mouth. "It's healed already." "You're not that fragile." Jason stroked his chin thoughtfully. "So, continuing tonight?" I nearly drowned myself in my own spit. "Jason Carter, I said we were forgetting that night. You're a big-shot CEO. Can't you let it go?" "With me, it won't be forgotten." The look in Jason's eyes wasn't subtle at all, like a wolf who just tasted meat and was now staring down the rest of the feast. "Lynn Hayes, you're single now, aren't you? Why not try being with me?" "Why?" "Because enemies are enemies. Enemies are not husband material." I was about to explain this extremely important truth when my assistant walked in. "President Hayes, President Harper is here. He says he wants to apologize." "President Harper? Julian?" I glanced at Jason, whose previously relaxed expression instantly darkened. My backside throbbed in phantom pain on instinct. I opened my mouth to refuse, but before I could, Julian Harper strode right in. "President Hayes, do I need an appointment to see you now?" Julian Harper's face actually showed something rare. Hurt. If this were the past, I'd have rushed forward to comfort him without hesitation. But now my gaze instinctively drifted toward Jason Carter instead. Great. This felt exactly like being caught cheating. Jason didn't say a word. He simply watched me, his eyes dark and unreadable. A chill ran down my spine, and I quickly straightened my posture, turning back toward Julian. "President Harper, you're just my college classmate. What right do you have to bypass appointments? If you have business, schedule a meeting. If not, and you show up again, I'll have security escort you out." The warmth in Julian's eyes slowly faded. His smile twisted, teeth gritted. "Fine, Lynn Hayes, your heart really is cruel." He let out a shaky breath, placed the bouquet in a folder on my desk. "President Hayes, I really did come to apologize today. And I brought the development proposal for the land as well. So after all this chaos, it still came down to that. I flicked my hand and tossed the proposal straight into the trash bin. Julian, do you really think you're that irresistible? Did you seriously take the nonsense I said before my amnesia to heart? And honestly, did I even say it? I don't remember. Julian's expression shifted sharply. Lynn, you really don't remember anything? He stepped closer, and just as he was about to say something else, his gaze froze, fixated on my neck. Then he lunged forward, grabbing my collar and yanking it open from both sides. What's that on your neck? What? Oh, the marks, the ones Jason Carter left, the love bites, and the teeth marks. I clapped a hand over my neck instinctively. In the next second, a strong arm wrapped around my waist, pulling me back several steps. Jason finally stepped forward, his expression downright stormy. President Harper, are you attempting sexual harassment? Julian looked between Jason and me and finally understood. Lynn, did you and him? His voice wavered between disbelief and something like hurt. I decided to drop the act entirely. Julian, who I sleep with, what does it have to do with you? You're the one who let me go. Julian's expression tightened. So you do remember everything? Of course I remembered. That's exactly why I found his actions even more disgusting. A bitter laugh escaped me. Stop pretending to be the tragic romantic lead. Before my car accident, weren't you already cozying up with Miles Jang? When you thought I lost my memory, you couldn't even bother clarifying it before kicking me aside. Julian, I can forgive you for wanting out of our agreement, but don't come to me acting righteous. If you dare show up again, security will throw you out. Right on cue, security entered the office. Seeing a row of 6'3" guards, Julian paused, jaw clenched, then finally turned to leave. At the doorway, he looked back. Lynn, whether you believe it or not, when Miles returned, I truly wasn't planning anything with him. Oh, so it was my amnesia that gave you two the opportunity? A sharp pain twisted in my chest, but my face relaxed into a light, almost airy smile. Should I thank myself for playing matchmaker then? He opened his mouth, but no words came. Then he left. I sat back in my chair, staring at nothing for a long time, unable to gather myself. Suddenly, a large hand covered my eyes. A deep voice whispered beside my ear, full of quiet strength. Lynn Hayes, your fake smile looks worse than crying. If you want to cry, cry. Don't force yourself. Darkness usually feels suffocating, but this time, it felt strangely safe. Warm dampness gathered and slipped through, soaking into the palm covering my eyes. After a while, I swatted his hand away lightly. Get lost. That wasn't crying. My eyes twitched. After that day, Julian Harper came to the company several more times. He lingered downstairs for a while each visit. When he couldn't see me, he would eventually leave, quietly. I didn't know what he wanted anymore. All I knew was, after that day, after those tears, something in me completely let go. It was as if years of feelings had washed out of me in a single moment, and never returned. Compared to Julian, Jason Carter was the real handful. The collaboration between Carter Corp and Hayes Corp was about to begin, and suddenly both companies were in constant contact, which meant Jason had more excuses to show up in my office. I had no idea what had gotten into him, but ever since that night, he hovered around me nonstop. Sometimes to discuss business, sometimes to bring food, sometimes, claiming to be passing by, just to look in on me. And he rarely talked. He would simply watch me with those intense black eyes of his, staring and staring until my scalp tingled. But nighttime was even worse. He wouldn't let me move out, yet he also didn't act as direct as before. Instead, he spent every evening wandering around half-naked. A whole man with broad shoulders, solid arms, and absurdly defined abs walking around as if the living room were a runway. He'd even keep the door open when he exercised, breathing heavily like he wanted it piped straight into my ears. And I was also a perfectly normal adult man with perfectly normal needs. Waking up every day just to see that kind of scene, even drinking calming herbal tonic daily, wasn't helping. I'd broken out in mouth ulcers from the stress. One day, I couldn't take it anymore. While he was shirtless in a video meeting, I marched into his study, intending to switch on his webcam. If he wanted to shamelessly tease me, fine. Let his whole company enjoy the show. But the moment I reached for the laptop, he pinned me flat against the desk. Lynn, don't tempt me. You bastard. Then maybe don't press against me like that. That entire meeting must have gone completely off the rails. By the time it ended, I was sprawled across his desk, unable to even lift my head. I still forced my voice into a threatening growl. Jason, if you dare seduce me again, I swear I'll really broadcast you to everyone. Jason blinked slowly. So you like that sort of thing? I froze. I'd reached my limit. Jason Carter, what do you actually want? Could he even act like a proper enemy anymore? Jason was silent for a long moment. Then his gaze locked onto mine, deep enough to swallow me whole. Lynn Hayes, he said, voice low and steady, I want to be your boyfriend. Isn't it obvious? I went still. Of course, I'd noticed his behavior these past weeks, but I hadn't expected him to say it so plainly. I turned my head away, feeling my face heat uncontrollably. My heart was pounding far too fast. Jason, being gay isn't exactly fun, you know. Jason's deep voice let out a low laugh, and he leaned in closer. Lynn, I bent myself just for you. Can you accept me? I didn't know the answer, so I ran. For the next several days, I didn't go back to Jason Carter's home. Instead, I randomly checked myself into a hotel room and stayed there. Jason didn't try to stop me. He didn't even show up at the company. I knew he wasn't giving up. He was waiting for my answer. But my heart was a complete mess, and I had no idea what kind of response I should give. I'd always known this path wasn't something you casually played with. That's why I never flirted with straight guys. Even with Julian Harper, I only approached him after confirming his orientation. But with Jason, someone who was once my rival, once my friend, once my lifelong enemy, and now something I couldn't even define, I genuinely didn't know what to do. Did I bend him? But I didn't even do anything. He just suddenly became like this. Honestly, it was probably just because my charm was too irresistible. I tugged at my hair in frustration, staring at a project proposal in my office without absorbing a single word. My phone suddenly rang. Without thinking, I picked it up. It was Jason. Lynn, the investigation results for your car accident are out. I froze. I'd almost forgotten about that incident. After all, it was just a minor injury, and the driver looked like it was an accident. I let it go. I hadn't expected Jason to keep digging. A warmth rose in my chest. I cleared my throat. How was it? It was Miles Jiang who arranged it. What? Jason's voice turned cold. He wanted to be with Julian after returning to the country, so he planned the accident. The man he hired was sloppy, and you were agile enough to get out of the way, so you didn't get hurt. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. He sounded like he was about to hang up, but I suddenly blurted out, Jason. After saying his name, I realized I had no idea what I wanted to say next. He waited for a moment on the other end before speaking. Lynn, I told you, I'll give you time to think. When this matter is settled, can you give me an answer? I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He waited a little longer, then let out a soft, helpless laugh. And the call ended. In the days that followed, Jason Carter remained silent. But from the company lawyer, I learned something else. Jason had already contacted him to start a lawsuit against Miles Jiang for attempted murder. Once the judgment took effect, Miles would be going to prison. The lawyer hesitated before adding, President Carter asked me to tell you, if President Harper comes to plead for leniency, he hopes you won't agree. Julian, plead forgiveness? What was Jason thinking? Did he think I would forgive someone who tried to harm me? Did he think Julian still held that much weight in my heart? And besides, why didn't Jason just tell me this himself? Why use an outsider to relay such an important message? Did he lose his tongue? All he gave me was time, but not a single word about how he felt, not a single bit of reassurance. Who would want to give him an answer like that? A wave of annoyance hit me. That stupid work-obsessed man. Was he treating me like a business tender? Waiting until the bidding deadline to show up and see if he won or lost? But as it turned out, Jason's prediction was right. 2 days later, I saw Julian Harper, on my way back to the hotel. Compared to the last time we met, he looked much more worn out. His usually crisp, perfectly ironed white dress shirt was wrinkled. His whole aura dimmed. When he saw me, something like humiliation flickered across his face, but his voice was softer than before. Lynn, have you been doing well lately? I frowned. What's it to you? Shouldn't you be handling Miles Jiang's lawsuit right now? Julian's smile stiffened. Lynn, I'll be honest. I came because of Miles. Miles, he acted recklessly. He made a mistake because he wasn't thinking straight. He's already suffered for it. Can't you let this go for once? Then he seemed to steel himself and continued, If you forgive him this time, I can promise you that from now on, I won't look at anyone else. I'll treat only you sincerely. Would that be acceptable? His eyes were filled with sincerity, or something that looked like it. But the disgust that rose in me was instant. Julian, stop dreaming. It's over between us. Whether you want support because of him or anyone else, I won't take you back. I'm a businessman, not a recycling plant. Julian's expression twisted. Lynn, we had happy times together, didn't we? Yes, we did. But even that small sliver of happiness was something I bought with everything I had. I, Lynn Hayes, know when to let go. Since that chapter was over, going back was impossible. Especially now, when someone else already filled that space in my heart. I shook off his hand and turned to leave, but Julian still wouldn't let go. Just as he grabbed my arm again, a dark figure shot forward. Jason Carter yanked me behind him and, with a single punch, sent Julian stumbling backward. Then a hard kick sent Julian crashing to the ground. He said no. Are you trying to kidnap him? Julian clutched his stomach, cold sweat dripping down his pale face, unable to speak. I held on to Jason, who looked ready to throw another punch, and glared coldly at Julian. If you ever come looking for me again, I'll make sure your precious Miles rots in prison. I dragged Jason away, but behind us, Julian suddenly rasped, Lynn, whether you believe it or not, I really did love you. Oh, is that so? But I don't love you anymore. We didn't stop walking until we reached the hotel I was staying at. Only then did I finally let go of Jason Carter. I grabbed the hand he'd used to punch Julian, turning it over again and again to inspect it. Jason pulled his fist back with an unhappy frown. What? My hand's red because I hit Julian, and you feel sorry for him? What kind of logic was that? I sighed, leaned in, and gently blew warm air over his knuckles. Does it hurt? He froze for a second, then slowly shook his head. You're awful at acting soft, I said helplessly. At a moment like this, you should whine a little like those little Omega boys. Make me feel bad for you. That's how you get me softening up. Jason's expression immediately darkened. And where exactly did you meet those little Omegas? I was speechless. Suddenly, I felt like there was no point trying to talk in circles with him. Jason was too blunt, too jealous, too easily irritated. Trying to use flirtation or subtlety on someone like him was torture for me. So, fine. I stopped torturing myself. I leaned over and kissed him. Jason stopped being mad instantly. Though his expression stayed stiff, his mouth eagerly sucked at mine, licking and tugging until my lower lip was swollen. Once I was finally released, I looked up at him through watery eyes. So, you're not giving me more time? Jason's face turned red. He glanced away awkwardly. If you want time, I'll give it. I don't want it anymore. I took a deep breath. Jason, are you stupid? You say you'll give me time, then you disappear for days. What, afraid I'd run away if you stuck around? He stayed silent. I continued. You're always like this. No wonder I couldn't tell you liked me before. His face instantly flushed bright red. You. How did you know? Well, I didn't know at the beginning. But once the thought crossed my mind, the signs became obvious. Like the way his face turned so sour when he learned that love letter prank wasn't real. Like the fact that he kept a framed photo of us under the national flag. Me reading my fake love letter. Him reading his disciplinary report. Like how every time I took on unprofitable projects for Julian, Jason would fight me tooth and nail, just to stop me from wasting myself on someone else. Jason never said anything. He only acted. It hurt him. Sure. But now that I could finally see it clearly, it felt like something warm was blooming in my chest. I hooked my arms around his neck. Jason, why didn't you tell me earlier? I wanted to finish school properly. I planned to confess after graduation. But before we even graduated, you started chasing that guy. Jason's face twisted at the mention of Julian, like he'd bitten into a lemon. My heart ached a little. If you'd chased me earlier, Julian wouldn't have stood a chance. Really? Jason looked at me skeptically, unable to fully believe it. Before I could answer, he pulled me into his arms again, tightly. No matter the past, from now on, he definitely won't be part of your life. He pressed his forehead against mine. So, have you decided? I nodded, leaned in, and kissed him with a clear mwah sound. Jason, don't betray me. I want to live my life with you. Jason Carter stared at me fixedly, and his eyes suddenly became bloodshot. I immediately became flustered. Jason Carter, don't be like that. Before I could finish, the man lowered his head and hugged me tightly. It's nothing. I'm just a little overwhelmed. Then he held my waist firmly for a long, long time. After that day, Jason Carter and I officially got together. Miles Jiang's case was sentenced soon after. He received a prison term and was taken into custody. I didn't attend the hearing, but I heard Julian Harper went. He stood in the audience seats the entire time, staring at Miles. After the hearing, he even tried asking my assistant about me, and my assistant scolded him so sharply he left with his tail between his legs. After that, Julian gradually disappeared from the city. It wasn't that he lacked talent. He was talented, but also prideful, stubborn, and incapable of maintaining good relationships. His company only survived all those years because I supported him, encouraged him, and helped him. Once I stopped doing that, it was only natural that his company slowly collapsed. The next time I heard anything about Julian was 3 years later. Miles was released from prison, and right outside the prison gates, he and Julian got into a huge fight, so big that the police had to intervene. "Well, that's entertaining," I said to Jason, laughing. "Fresh out of jail, and straight into a police station again. Those two really can't stand peace, huh?" Jason listened quietly, then came over and wrapped his arms around me. "Jason, why do you still look constipated every time Julian is mentioned? I told you, I'm done with him." "I'm not," he blurted quickly. "I'm not thinking about him. I'm just feeling a little protective, and a little jealous. Protective of all those years I wasted in one-sided love. Jealous because his heart was small and petty." I nodded knowingly. All right. If you say you're not jealous, then you're not. Now go cook. I want 3-cup chicken tonight." He kissed me lightly along the jaw. "Feed me first, then I'll cook." Before I could protest, he was already kissing me again. Slow, insistent, warm. "Jason, stop. Yesterday we already." "Jason." My breath trembled, my hands weak against his shoulders. He didn't budge, so I just gave in and closed my eyes. Heat spread through me, warmth, tenderness, and a happiness that felt like it was overflowing from my chest. Every day with Jason felt a little happier than the day before, and that happiness felt like it was going to last a very, very long time. The end.